We've previously talked a couple of John Wayne films, and as I mentioned before talking about The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, I had not seen a John Wayne film.
And we had almost stop the world and make you watch The Searchers, yeah.
Yes, so we've done two of those before, The Searchers and Liberty Valance. This was one I watched during that kind of Liberty Valance time, and I wanted to revisit the film because I'd seen the remake so many times before, and I love the remake. But we're going to be talking about the film that finally got John Wayne his Oscar.
Yes,
today.
Yes, and a lot of people think he doesn't deserve it. It's just because he's missed out on many opportunities. He should have won it for The Searchers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He missed the boat on that
so
one.
We're going to break down Rooster Cogburn and his one eye and his one Oscar with True Grit. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. For the new subscribers, thanks for finding us and thanks for watching. And, of course, hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us out a great deal. Tell your friends about the show. It's a little thing you can do to help us out and to help us out greatly. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. Heck yeah, we have a Patreon. Check that out for some great content and some great deals and a wonderful opportunity to pick the movies we'll review on the show on future episodes. With, of course, a shout out to you. And today we're talking about the classic Western because Kyle hasn't watched a lot of Westerns in his life. We're going to watch True Grit, the original.
So Maddie Ross on the hunt for the man who killed her father enlists U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn to help her in her mission. They begrudgingly team up with Texas Ranger LaBeef in an effort to use their grit to find the villainous Tom Chaney.
So this is based on the book True Grit by Charles Portis. It doesn't have a lot of material cited for back in his name, but also Dog of the South is another one of his. I think it got turned into a movie. Screenplay is interesting. It's made by a woman.
Yes, Marguerite Roberts, who I wasn't as familiar with.
No, she's one of those that packed up her bags and went to Hollywood, and she got a job being a secretary at 20th Century Fox. I think Wikipedia cites that as well. But also worked later of just dropping her scripts of writing materials to producers. Oh, that's mine, yeah. I really like that. Oh, you do.
It's like a classic success story that's not realistic at all, and somehow she did it.
No, and through doing enough of that, she got a 7-year deal contract writing screenplays for Paramount Pictures.
Yeah, and I think, especially when you look at it from the time period, because women nowadays are still not getting as much opportunities for the behind the camera work. The non performance-based work. Sort of imagine that and then tack on 54 years to that. And think about the fact that she wrote and she got a 7-year deal to do that. It's just, that has to be celebrated.
I know. It's just from 1936 to the 60s she was doing screenplays.
And considering that a lot of praise for this film came from the strong female character writing. Yeah. Again, has to put a little feather in the cap.
Right, yes, interesting. So, it's directed by Henry Hathaway. Henry Hathaway did a lot of movies, Westerns with John Wayne. He's not just John Ford and John Wayne Westerns, but Henry Hathaway, did a lot of Westerns. Sons of Katie Elder is one of his popular ones. But also, he is an accomplished noir film director. The Call of Northside 77, Kiss of Death, and The House on 92nd Street are one of the most noir films that he's directed. So he's dabbled in noirs, he's done the westerns, he has credentials. My God, he's one of those that didn't go to film school, he went to film. And I think working enough with John Wayne, I think if Henry's like, I want you to do your movie, and John Wayne's like, heck yeah, I know.
Right. Yeah. And when you look at his finished product here and you think about the time period in which it was made being the 60s, the only thing for me that really fits this film in 1969 is John Wayne's appearance. Because he's weathered, he's aged, and they're not hiding it in this movie. But when you look at the actual color grading of the film and the cinematography, it feels like a film out of the 50s in a lot of ways. Yeah. And as I began to think about it some more,
it's almost like they really wanted to do Paramount Pins, VistaVision.
Yeah, it's like they just missed the boat and found the movie a couple years later and was like, okay, put it on the shelf. Yeah. But when you read this quote from Henry Hathaway, he was going for a fantasy Western. Like in the sense that it was kind of going to be a little bit less realistic and more of kind of like this child on this amazing adventure kind of a story.
Oh boy, did he really? I don't perceive that.
Well, as I was thinking about that, I thought that fits the look of it a little bit more, because the color choices are a little bit different on some of the clothing, and having it be this kind of story that
if you want to do whimsical, it's interesting. You want to do whimsical, especially when the book is not.
Yeah,
I understand why now the Coen brothers took it and let's keep true to the book.
Yep. And before you guys comment, we know the Coen brothers is not remake; it's another adaptation. We know that. Deal with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Coen brothers kind of had a completely different take on it. And that's why I love both movies, because they're both kind of drastically different tales that do the exact same story.
Yeah. Oh, rounding out the cast, we got cinematographer Lucian Ballard. He's one of those people that just was fumbling in life, and then I think he was participating. He got invited to a Clairable 3-day binge party. And he stayed there and he's like, this is the industry I want to stay at. and just being on film sets, he finally was able to be a camera operator and finally do cinematography. He's done some of the most accomplished cinematography for westerns. He worked a lot with Sam Peckinpah. He did The Wild Bunch, The Ride to High Country. He also did The Getaway. We talked about The Getaway.
Yeah, check out that classic episode. It's on here now. So.
And another Sam Peckinpah was his junior boner. But it's interesting. He's one of those that he didn't go to film school. He just went to film and learned just being on set and operating. I won't say cinematography is the great punch of the movie, but it's very much the act. It gets the right setting for it. And I think it's not the flashy stuff.
Yeah, because it kind of gets it right when it needs to get it right.
Exactly.
I don't mean that as none of the cinematography in the film is bad, but there's particular. I was watching the shootout at the end. I rewound and watched that again. And I thought that shootout was incredibly well accomplished because everyone's on horseback and trying to get it to actually look like, that's where I felt the fantasy element of the really high flying Western shootout. Because it's kind of not really something you would do in such a way, but he shoots it in such a way that you're kind of involved in it.
Right, you shoot low up when he's doing this two shotgun thing.
Yeah.
You're not going to look down on him. You're going to whoa,
I was looking for the 4 arms, 2 that were operating the horse and 2 that were shooting, and I couldn't find them, so.
Editing is Warren Lowe. He has been editing in the late 30s. His first movie he ever edited was Satan Meets a Lady, which is the second adaptation of the Maltese Falcon. There is a 1936 Maltese Falcon, and then they did Satan Meets a Lady, which is kind of the comical version of Maltese Falcon before you have the great Humphrey Bogart movie that came out in 1941.
Oh, that title sounded familiar. I thought I was like, I think
it's Betty Davis. It's it's interesting to watch. It's a fun movie, and that's the first movie Warren Lowe edited. He's also been second editor to a lot of movies, and he edited this one. I think he got best nomination for this one.
For this one? No, this one had 2 nominations. Of course, the one that ended up being the win for Wayne, but then the other one was for Best Original Song for the True Grit theme that played. The one that, the award that we never really think about that much. But
Glenn Campbell, of course, right, yeah. Oh, speaking of Glenn Campbell, it's time to round out the cast. So, we got Glenn Campbell.
Yep. Who was, the role was originally written for Elvis, but they could not afford his asking price, nor were they willing to put him above John Wayne on the poster.
Oh, well, that'd be a heck of a title, right?
So.
John Wayne and Elvis Presley both in the same movie. Yeah. That's a lot of ego.
Yeah, especially when you throw in Hathaway.
And then you throw Hathaway. That is just almost too much ego. Even the poster would burst. Right. Until you have the low life, soft, kid friendly Glenn Campbell.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see why with Glenn Campbell in there when it originally got rated a little bit of a higher rating and then got edited down to a G, and you're like, yeah, that fits, that tracks.
All right, Kim Darby's in it. She plays Maddie. If you didn't know, Kim Darby was the mom in Better Off Dead.
Yeah,
I looked up. I go, you got to be kidding me! She's John Cusack's mom in that movie.
She's still doing movies. She was in a couple movies just less than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I will always remember Kim Darby as the mom from Halloween 6. She was in The Curse of Michael Myers.
I didn't want to say.
And she gets splattered.
But for a movie where she has the most lines.
Yeah, she's the driving narrative force. She is the protagonist of this film.
Right, yeah.
Kind of a tall order, especially when you consider that, Mia Farrow was actually kind of the front runner to get this role. And she was actually quite a bit older at this time.
Yeah, it'd be almost like a Mia Farrow sissy Spacek or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
And then I guess Mia Farrow heard from, was it Robert Mitchum? I think she'd done a film with Robert Mitchum where he had said, "Don't work with Henry Hathaway. He's a dirtbag. He's awful." And I think it was Robert Mitchum. Correct me if in the comments if I'm wrong.
No, Robert, he's very blunt.
Mia
Yeah.
Farrow was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this movie anymore now." So then they had to start looking again. They had to start figuring out what to do. And in fact, that's kind of the running joke throughout this film is that John Wayne was really the only guy who was trying to get in this movie. Everybody else was like
trying to get out.
No, he's trying to get in.
Oh.
Everybody else was saying no, and they were getting the second, third, fourth choice. And John Wayne was the guy who read the book, fell in love with the book, lobbied for the role, which is not something that he was known to do.
No.
And then he read the script, and he said the script was one of the best things I've ever read, and I need to be in this movie. Okay. So it's funny that he really wanted in so bad when everybody else was trying to get out.
And I think I haven't read the book, but I think the book lifts a lot to how they speak in the book, and it's wonderful dialogue.
Yeah, it must be lifted from the book because there's some similar quotations in the other adaptation from the Coen brothers.
Very
and like
Western.
I said, that was based on the book as well, not this film. So
very Western. Yeah. So wonderful. We built a setup for it. It's very interesting of the time because the late 60s, you have the protests, you have a lot of public people being assassinated, and here you have this old Western. Kind of doesn't really feel fitted to the times.
like I said, it's like they shot it 15 years earlier, and the only person who got older was John Wayne.
Yeah. So it's perfect time to talk about Who Has It? True Grit.
All right, you said Who Has It, and I'm one of the guys who hadn't seen the film, and I had 2 damn copies of it. So I finally got around to watching my 2 copies of this movie.
Right. Okay. You've never seen it. What do you think?
Well, I watched it a couple years ago when we did our Liberty Valance episode. This is my revisiting of the film. I like this film quite a bit. I think initially when I saw it...
It has this beginning Little House on Prairie, soft...
It's a weird movie, yeah. Because it feels like, again, when I think of John Wayne, I do think of, like, bloody shootouts. You know, I think about more of the hard-hittingness of, like,
really
the
mean
searchers
men,
and stuff.
and these guys are idiots.
Yeah.
Tom Chaney's a dumbass.
And maybe the fact is that they were all kind of mean to each other behind the scenes. You know, in that, again, Wayne got along with Hathaway behind the scenes, but they didn't get along with Campbell, they didn't get along with Darby, they didn't get along with
Robert Duvall probably did.
Oh, yeah, there were shouting matches with Robert Duvall where he almost got fired, and it's like, I'm sure, Dennis Hopper is in the film. I'm sure he fought with people as well. There was a lot of...
well, if everybody else is fighting, I gotta
get in on this.
Yeah.
So it's weird to think that a movie that has such a tender sweetness to it. And that's something that, again, I saw the 2010 adaptation from the Coen brothers, years before. I love that movie. I've watched it multiple times.
It has a very gritty... Right.
That is a grit movie, yeah. And this is
more of
this is kind of that fantasy. When you see it in that context, it does feel like a different movie.
Yeah, it's very kind of trying to deal with this content of I'm trying to get revenge of who killed my dad, but the tone is very different, very light, whimsical. Mm-hmm. We love movies because in reality, what the hell are you doing riding a horse with 2 shotguns? Why don't you set the horse down and put the shotguns up there, right? But we love movies of you riding together. That's just movie magic. Movie makes sense, right? Why, when you see dinosaurs, did you take your glasses off, Sam Neill? Because that's the movie punch.
Because that's what I do.
Yeah. But I love the scene. I love it. And it's the most memorable scene. It's movie sense, not common sense. You take 2 shotguns out, and you just... Right.
Well, imagine, too, that shootout scene that's at the end of the film. There are people that travel to the field where they shot that. And they said it's apparently really easy to find. But there are people that have searched out the field, and they take pictures on a vacation. The field is a bunch of trees. Like, it's not like anyone knows what field you're in, and yet people go there because of the iconic sense of that final shootout in the battle that takes place. And it's a movie that, again, you know about it because of John Wayne, but you don't realize that there's a Robert Duvall in the film. You don't realize that Dennis Hopper is there, or that...
Strother Martin, too.
Strother Martin, yeah. Or Wilford Brimley, who plays an uncredited role in the background of this film. So,
and it's one of my other second favorite scenes of her just talking to Strother Martin. She wins the conversation.
Yeah.
And you're like, how the hell is this little kid going to outwit this adult? And she does.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, I guess if I would say this, I don't think Kim Darby has a consistently strong performance in the film. Okay. I think that she has some great scenes. And I think there are some that she doesn't. She kind of drops the ball on a little bit. And again, she's young.
Yeah.
I don't want to criticize child actors, but she's been working for like another 55 years, so she did okay. And like it's just something where like you can see that sense of it. And I almost wish that John Wayne had been kinder off screen and kind of helped mold this child actress to help a little bit, because it seems like she had a lot of difficulty just getting through to anybody. That the director didn't like her. John Wayne didn't get along with her all that well. Like, you're not really helping.
Yeah, you don't really know the other than you have friction on set. It happens all the time.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to happen with the kid actors.
I know why you treat kids rotten and stuff like that. There's a Katniss General. What do you think of General?
I love General, but I will say this: when he manhandles that cat, you're gonna get scratched in the face. Because I've gotten a few scratches before holding a cat like the way he does it. My God! But then again, I also like too that he has his philosophy. When you get those little nuggets of Rooster Cogburn, where he says, "I don't own that cat. I just board with him. Like, we live together, and I respect his space, and he respects mine, and we're mutual." That's kind of that element of Rooster Cogburn. He's never really tied down, even though he physically is tied down.
Right, even
to
in
location.
court, you try to testify, why'd you shoot that man? Well, he was going to try to shoot me first, It just kind of backs off to anything that could corner him in the world.
Yeah.
Right. Even when he's rounding up the bad guys and he's the last one, but he's just, you take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like I'm willing to accept my fate, whatever happens, even if you shoot me at the end.
Yeah. And I want to take a second. Let's talk about John Wayne winning the Oscar.
Yeah.
Because at the time I think he was surprised by it. I think he jokingly said beginner's luck when he accepted the statue. He said, if I had known this, I'd have put the eye patch on 30 years ago. Yeah. He was I genuinely believe surprised to the extent when he got this award. And I don't think this is a bad performance. I think a lot of people saw him win the award and then they started kind of backtracking on it. I don't think it's a bad performance at all.
No.
I've just never felt like a John Wayne performance has been worthy of an Oscar in general. I think that in general he's playing John Wayne a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I've never really seen a range from him.
Even in Spanish Shot Liberty Balance, there's that Tom that he plays, and you feel sorry for him, but it really doesn't step out of him being,
Yeah. It's kind of like... you guys will probably hate me from this comparison, but like Steve Carell, for years, played the same guy in a lot of movies. He was basically playing the same kind of Michael Scott-like office character. Yeah. But then when he finally like broke out with something like Foxcatcher or Vice and did these like really well integrated roles and stuff, that we started to think, oh my goodness, that's incredible. None of us talk about Melissa McCarthy's comedies outside of like Bridesmaids, because oftentimes when she's doing these comedies, she's playing the same character over and over again. It's right. Just kind of like whether or not that works. Yeah. And I think John Wayne tends to fit a mold.
It's a brand,
in a lot of these
right?
movies. Yeah.
It's a brand that I think it's hard to step away from.
Yeah.
He's challenged himself. I mean, there's movies where he's been the detective going over to Britain, stuff like that. But it's never, like, in a sense, the villain or something like that. Yeah.
So I think, like, and me, this is not me saying John Wayne is a bad actor. I think John Wayne fits a mold. He's when he's worked with directors that know how to use him, they've used him to play a John Wayne-like character. And I think that's where I think this is probably one of the biggest departures that he's done, because there is a little bit more warmth to the character behind all that dirt.
Right, it's the character. It's the old cliche of lone wolf and cub.
Exactly.
And it's a formula that will work to the end of time.
Yes.
We love it to death.
And that is why when they eventually do The Mandalorian again, I want to see someone resurrect a CG John Wayne to play the character. But I think it's a good departure for him. It's a good performance. He was nominated up against Richard Burton from Anne of a Thousand Days, and that's who he thought should win. Peter O'Toole for Goodbye Mr. Chips, and actually a dual Best Actor nomination, Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight, both for Midnight Cowboy.
Midnight Cowboy.
So it's a question of, this was a lifetime achievement award in a lot of ways.
It kind of feels like it.
Yeah, it was kind of like
it's almost like we're sorry you missed a boat on the other. You missed a boat on Searchers, and even Stagecoach or something like that.
But I don't think that takes away from the solid work in the performance. It's kind of like when Marty Scorsese finally won for Departed, And then everyone started saying like The Departed isn't a good movie, and it's like, no, it's a really good movie.
It really is.
It's just he probably should have won earlier.
He should have won for right so many other times, right?
Yeah, and so Leo winning for The Revenant, that also had the same thing too, where people are like, well, The Revenant's not even that good of a movie, and it's like, it's a really good movie. You're really just not thinking about it in terms of the win.
And it's the same thing for Denzel Washington.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's always the truth. Almost sometimes you don't win it for the ones that you should have, but the ones who win it for the should have, their career goes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
that usually happens. It's almost like you don't want it to win for the ones you should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Oscars have always been of a place in time where, like, this win may not be the win that we all think about 50 years later, but it's the win for the time. And it's good that we have things like Lifetime Achievement Awards now at the Oscars. Like, and I think that's probably what he should have won, was a Lifetime Achievement Award for the many, many years that he had put in. But you know what? He deserves to get something for doing so many Westerns.
Yeah, you could do a show just on that.
We'll probably be back with another one next year.
All right. What do you think of our assessment of True Grit?
Yes. Let us know your comments down in the comment section below.
Yeah.
And which version
God, that was very
prefer.
Rooster Claiborne right there, right?
Yeah.
Make a comment down in the comment section. Man.
Yeah. Head on down there. We'll go in from around. And let us know which adaptation of the book you prefer. It's okay. I think this is actually a case where I do still prefer the 2010 Joel.
I think it's
Ethan
far
Coen
more. It's the really authentic take on the book.
Yeah, and I think that this is a good property to do another adaptation of.
Yes,
because you can do it in a different way, and that's what they did. So let us know your comments down below as far as that goes, and maybe which John Wayne film we should cover next, because we're going to come back to this. I've still got a lot of John Wayne movies that are wrapped up in my basement, so I need to watch some of those. So let us know down there what one we should do next.
It's really true. He does have a basement full of movies.
Yeah. It's great. If it floods, I'm in trouble. Yeah. And you can catch all of my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
And you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts. You son of a bitch!